Have you guys ever wondered how these photographers capture photos that have this silky, smooth, blurry background? That is a result of a wide aperture. But then, what is aperture? So in this part 3 of Camera Basics, I will tell you what aperture is, how it affects your photographs, and also how to use it correctly. So what are you waiting for? Awaken the photographers inside you, cause we are getting started. In the previous episode of Camera Basics, I explained you guys what shutter speed is, which you can find in the info card over here. In this part 3, we will talk about aperture. So what is aperture? Aperture is a hole in the center of your camera lens, which you can change the size of depending on how much light you would like to capture in your camera sensor. A simple way to understand aperture is by understanding how a human eye functions. When you move in between a bright and a dark environment, the iris in your eye expands and contracts to balance the brightness, just like how you would do it in your camera. Aperture does various effects to your photograph, one being the exposure. A large aperture will pass a lot of light through it and will result in a bright image. These can especially be useful while shooting at night or in dark environment, as it allows your camera to collect a lot of light in. Versus if you are in a very bright environment, be like in a sunny atmosphere, lower aperture will cut the excess light, producing a well exposed image. But then how will you figure out if your aperture is large or small? To identify that, you will check the f number, or what pros like to call it the f-stop. In simple terms, f-stop is the unit to determine the size of the aperture relative to the focal length. The letter f is actually written as fraction. For example, an aperture of f2 is equivalent to 1/2 or half. A note to the people who think that 1/4 is greater than 1/2. It's not. Hence, f2 is greater than f4. This is one of the things that confuses a lot of people. So I explained it in a simple manner. When I mentioned large upper earlier, I meant aperture like f1.4, f2, f2.8, and aperture like f8, f16, f22 are considered as small aperture. At the very beginning of the episode, I mentioned another characteristic of aperture, that is blurring the background. This is actually called the depth of field. Basically, the amount at which your photograph appears sharper at the focus and blurrier at the end. A shallow or thin depth of field is where the background is completely blurred, and a deep or a large depth of field is where the foreground and the background both are sharp and clear. So now let me show you the practical effect of changing the aperture. So let's just say if I am shooting this video at a medium aperture like say f4 and everything is correctly exposed, if I increase the aperture to f2, as we learned, the image will get brighter. But not only that, but the depth of field will also get shallow, resulting the background will be more blurry. But now if I decrease the aperture to say f8, the image will be more darker and the background will also be less blurred. You guys may also have heard a term called bokeh or bokeh. There is a misconception about it, as some people think that bokeh is the background blur or the amount of background blur, which is completely wrong. Bokeh is actually the quality of the blur, or should I say the softness or the creaminess of the blur, but not blur itself. Aperture affects a lot of things in a photograph, but I wanted this video to be a short, simple and a basic explanation. So that was it. This is where you can find the next part of the series, and this is where you can subscribe to my channel. With that being said, guys, you guys are awesome. Yes, you are awesome. So just stay awesome, keep smiling, make everyone happy, focus on your dreams, and I will see you next time. Peace.